David Hume, one of the great philosophers of all time. And I went to visit his tomb this year in Edinburgh, Scotland. If you look at my video called David Hume's Tomb, you can check that out and see. It's a short video. It's only like less than a minute long. But I didn't even, and I actually stopped like coming up this little pathway. I should have went closer all the way up to the tomb, but I didn't go that far. And it's an interesting thing. It took a little while to find it. It's up on Calton Hill in Edinburgh, Scotland. But that's where he was buried in 1776. The year he died. He died in 1776. He was born in 1711. And he was a skeptic. And he questioned everything. And that's the big lesson I learned, is to examine everything, to question. See, that's the one thing I like about philosophy. Philosophy gets you to question things, to look at things, to ask questions. Questions are important, and I think like Einstein said that questions are more important than answers. They really are. You know, I always think the best philosophy books aren't ones that give me a whole bunch of answers, but the ones that give me intriguing questions, that raise intriguing questions, like why are we here? And what is the meaning of life? But not just those things, but, you know, how do we know anything? How do we know? Is David Hume's famous question, how do you know? You know, we claim to know things all the time. Every day people claim to know something. But you got to ask the question, how do you know? Let me kind of get nuts for a moment. I want to kind of get crazy. Because I wasn't going to get crazy, but I decided to get crazy. You know, I have this little thing right here, this little plastic thing. This is actually part of my infusion set thing. It's like there's a little needle in here. But that's not the point. The point is it has to do with the color. Look at the color. It's blue. This is blue. Now, let me ask this question. Is it blue? I mean, yeah, it is. If you were here and you look at it on camera, you can see it's blue. And if you were here in real life, you'd also come to the conclusion it's blue too. But let's kind of get into that for a moment. What is blue? I'm going to make a radical statement and say something crazy. I'm going to say that in the physical world, there's no such thing as blue. That's crazy. That's crazy. I even say it. I even admit it's crazy. But here's one point. I think that if you get into physics, really deeply into physics, you come to the conclusion that what I just said is true, that there is no blue. See, what happens is there's light, like that source of light over there. And what light is little particles called photons. They hit this, and they reflect it off of this, and it enters into my eye. Those photons go to the back of the eye, the retina, and the signals. It becomes electrical signals sent through the optic nerve to the brain, which interprets that as blue. So blue is basically what my brain is interpreting. It's not something in the physical world. So if you say that there is no blue in the physical world, but it's just your brain's interpretation of something. You know, a lot of people who don't really get into science would say, that's nuts, that's crazy. How could you say that there's no blue? You can obviously see that a thing is blue. But what you're really referring to when you refer to blue is your experience of something. You're referring to your experience of something. It's like when you touch something that's hot or you touch something that's cold. Is the thing cold, or are you referring to your experience of something? That's an interesting thing to think about. I always like questions, to examine it. I'm not giving answers. I'm just stating something. And when you make a statement, you have to kind of support that statement. And in science, that's the thing. The same thing in religion, you know, which should be, you know, I agree with Richard Dawkins that, you know, religion should be held to the same scrutiny. If you claim that there's a God, then support the ideal. if you're going to make a claim that there is a God, support it. Don't just say, well, there is because I said so. Or there is because it said so in the Bible. And that's it. You know, I'm not saying that there is no blue in the world because it says so in the physics book. You can look at it. You can examine it. You can think about it. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree. It's just interesting questions. Is there really a God? Think about it. Is there really just nothing? That there's just no God at all? Something to think about. These are things to think about. You know, why do we exist? Every question is important. Why? Is there a meaning? You know, some people say that our existence is absurd. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre basically said that our existence is absurd. There's no particular reason why we're here. We're just here. But what we try to do, according to Jean-Paul Sartre, is we try to create a meaning. We try to make our lives meaningful. I think there's a great deal of truth to that. You know, I don't agree with him 100%, but I think that there's a great deal of truth that we constantly try to create a meaning in our lives. And ultimately, what's most important, what he said was most important, is basically that we be authentic, that we be what we really are, and not be fake about it. Interesting thoughts. I just like to ask questions, and I like questions a lot more. Sometimes they're more interesting than answers, because it's you know, we have to look and see. And that's fun. Actually, I enjoy. That's why I like philosophy. I love it. When I started getting into it, it just really fascinated me. You know, so this just leaving you with some questions and some things to think about and ponder.